All right, so you ready to dive in? Imagine this. It's April, and you know those deadlines. They're like right around the corner. And you're staring at this giant stack of tax forms. We've all been there, haven't we?
Yeah.
But today, we're going to do a deep dive on finding some relief, especially when it comes to the child tax credit for 2024. We've got some awesome resources lined up, NerdWallet, Jackson Hewitt. We even found a congressional report on this. So let's decode this thing together and see how it can work for you.
Sounds like a plan.
So, what even is this child tax credit thing? And, why should we even care about it? I think we should try to simplify all of this.
You're speaking my language. The child tax credit, or CTC, as you might see it written down somewhere, is basically a tax break. And it's designed to help families with how much it costs to actually raise kids.
Okay, that makes sense.
Think of it like a discount on your tax bill. Up to $2,000 for each qualifying child under 17.
Okay, $2,000 per kid. That's a lot of money. But I think I remember hearing about those monthly CTC payments a while back. Back in 2021. What happened to those?
Yeah, so those were temporary. For 2024, the CTC is back to being a credit you claim when you file your taxes. So no more monthly checks for now.
Good to clarify that right away. So let's get down to it. Who actually qualifies for this credit?
Well, the IRS has some rules, of course, but I don't want to bore you with all the details. Basically, your kid has to be related to you under 17, live with you most of the year, and can't be paying their own way. You'll need to meet some citizenship requirements, too, and have a valid Social Security number for your child.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. What about income limits? Is there a certain income where you just don't qualify at all?
Yeah, so there are some income thresholds where the credit starts to phase out, meaning you get less of it as your income goes up.
Okay.
If you're married, filing jointly, that phase out starts above $400,000. For other filing statuses, it starts at $200,000.
So you could be making good money and still get some of the credit. That's good to know. This is what I wanted to know more about. Can you actually get money back from this credit?
Yeah.
Even if you don't owe that much in taxes?
Absolutely. You can. And that's where the additional child tax credit comes in.
Okay.
Or the ACTC. It's the refundable part of the CTC. So if the credit is more than the taxes you owe, you could actually get up to $1,700 back per child.
Wow. $1,700 per child back in your pocket.
Yeah.
What do you have to do to get that refundable part?
So there are a couple extra requirements. For the most part, you need at least $2,500 in earned income. So that's money from a job or self-employment. Or you need to have 3 or more kids who qualify. It's designed to give an extra boost to those working families with lower incomes.
That's awesome. I was reading about this bill that might have changed all of this. What's up with that?
You're probably thinking about the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act. It was a bill that sadly didn't make it through the Senate.
Oh no, that's too bad. What would it have changed about this credit?
It was hoping to make the refundable part of the ACTC even bigger, making it easier for lower-income families to qualify and possibly get more financial help.
Makes you wonder about these things, right?
Yeah.
What could happen with taxes in the future?
For sure. The fact that it was even something people were talking about says a lot about how we think about, poverty these days and income inequality, and how taxes can maybe help with those things. It reminds you that this child tax credit isn't just about numbers. It's about real families who are trying to, make ends meet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did this credit even happen? Where did it come from?
That's a really good question. It's kind of interesting, actually. The CTC goes all the way back to 1997.
Wow.
It started as a way to give some tax relief to middle-class families, and it's changed a lot over the years. It's gotten bigger and smaller depending on what families need and also what's going on in politics.
Right. I was just thinking about that. Didn't the expanded CTC back in 2021 really change things for kids in poverty? I feel like I read that somewhere.
You're totally right. Studies from Columbia University showed that when they expanded the credit back then, it actually really helped reduce child poverty. It just goes to show you how much of a difference this credit can make.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So just by claiming this credit, people could be helping out way more than just their own families.
Yeah, totally. When families have more money to work with, they can do things like, buy more stuff, which helps the economy. And that's good for everyone. It's pretty interesting how taxes can be used to make things better for people and for the economy.
So true. Okay, now enough of the big picture stuff for now. I want to talk about what people actually do. So say someone's listening and they think they might qualify. How do they actually claim this credit?
So you'll do it when you file your taxes. For the 2024 tax year, you'll file in 2025, and you'll use either Form 1040 or Form 1040-SR. If you're also going for the refundable part, the ACTC, you'll use Form 8812.
Those forms sound scary.
Yeah.
Any tips for, like, actually doing all that?
Tax software can be a lifesaver. It takes you through everything step by step, and it can usually figure out if you qualify for the CTC and other credits too. Saves you time, helps you avoid mistakes, and you might even get more money back.
That's good advice.
And so
What about deadlines? Anything people should keep in mind?
the big one is the tax filing deadline. Usually that's in April. So for the 2024 tax year, it would be April 2025. But don't forget, you can get an extension if you need more time to get your stuff together.
Well, good point.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's go back to something we talked about earlier, the child and dependent care credit. I know it's different, but how is it different exactly?
Right. So the child tax credit is more about the general costs of raising a kid. The child and dependent care credit is specifically for taking care of a child under 13, a spouse or a dependent who needs help, so you can work or look for work.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like the CTC helps with the cost of having kids, and the child and dependent care credit helps you actually work and have kids?
Exactly. It's there because childcare is really expensive and it can be hard to afford, especially for working parents. It's meant to make things a little easier and help more people be able to work.
Makes sense. Could you give us a quick rundown of the child and dependent care credit? Like, how much is it, and are there income limits on that too?
Yeah, so the amount depends on how much you spend on care and how much money you make. For 2024, the most you can claim for expenses is $3,000 for one person, or $6,000 for two or more people. The percentage you can claim as a credit goes from 35% for lower incomes down to 20% for higher earners.
So it could be a big help.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other, like, major differences that our listeners should know?
One big one is that the child and dependent care credit is not refundable. Like the child tax credit has the refundable ACTC part, remember. This one can bring your tax bill down to zero, but you won't get any of it back as a refund.
Gotcha. That's definitely an important difference. It sounds like families should check out both the child tax credit and the child and dependent care credit to see which one or if both can help them out.
Exactly. It's all about knowing what's out there and using it to your advantage. You know what they say, knowledge is power,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to taxes.
I like that.
Yeah.
So true. We've covered a lot today. We talked about the child tax credit, looked at how it started and what kind of impact it has, and even touched on the child and dependent care credit.
Definitely. And I think the main takeaway is that knowing about these credits is so important. They can make a real difference for families and help make the economy stronger.
Couldn't agree more. So what's like the one thing you want our listeners to remember about the child tax credit?
Honestly, after looking at all of this, it really hits home that the child tax credit is about so much more than just taxes. It's about how we take care of families.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
We're talking about like the actual cost of raising kids
All right.
and how we can help families out, especially when kids are little.
Exactly. And here's something I think is super important for everyone to remember. This credit, it can change. It's not set in stone.
Right.
I've already seen it get bigger and smaller over the years. So it's on us to stay informed and be part of the conversation about it. And, stand up for policies that make sense for families.
Absolutely. We have to understand these things and talk about them and make sure our voices are heard. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope people will take away from all of this?
I hope they realize that they can figure this stuff out. It's easy to get overwhelmed by taxes, but the more you know, the better. You've got this.
I love that. This has been such a great deep dive. We really dug into the child tax credit, its history, its impact. And we even got into the child and dependent care credit, too. You've got the knowledge now, so go out there and maybe save some money this tax season. And as always, this is just the beginning. Keep asking questions, keep learning. Until next time, happy exploring.